Okay, everyone, I'm just going to do a quick sound check just to make sure that the microphone is working, and I shall be with you in just a moment. Okay, everyone. Okay, that's pretty much me ready to go for today's session. I'm just going to get a pen and we will be starting in just one moment. I'm just waiting for other people to join us. So we'll be starting the coronavirus government financial support live Q&A in just 1 second. Okay, let's get the show on the road then. So I'm just going to try and find my camera here and just make sure everything's going to be set up correctly. Here I am. So good morning to you all, and I hope that you are well and safe at the same time. Thank you ever so much for joining me this morning. This is a bit of an impromptu event. Obviously, I've been doing live Q&A sessions during the weekday. I ceased doing those because the announcements weren't as many, so I stopped doing those. But I wanted to do this event, and I'm doing the same event on Tuesday. So if you're here today on the Saturday, you do not need to attend Tuesday unless there is any major updates from the government, and I will be putting those into that session as well. So what are we going to be covering? Well, we're going to be covering a number of topics today, all about the government support and financial updates. And really, it's for you to be able to ask your questions, some things that may be concerning you, some things that may be worrying you. We're all human at the end of the day, so we're not going to have the definitive answer on every single aspect. Equally, the government haven't really had the opportunity to flesh out all of the issues that they have put out there on the website. So you may have questions that they haven't answered. So I'm going to do my very best not to try and forecast or predict, but to only use factual information that I know based on government legislation, as well as the snippets that they put out on the media as well. So it won't be coming from tabloids, it will be coming from the actual facts. So I'm going to be flicking between my screens, so I apologize for that in advance, but it's just to help me make sure that if there's any questions, that I will be able to see those questions in advance. So before we start, let's talk about some of the upsides. So last week, I ran a property tax workshop. For those that could not attend that event, don't worry, because this video is now on YouTube as well. So that's over just under 2.5 hours worth of content, longer than I anticipated, I've got to be honest. But there's some very, very good questions from the audience, so I felt compelled to answer those questions. So if you didn't have the opportunity to watch that, then please feel free to do that maybe after this session today. If you haven't done so and you have spare capacity because you're bored, you're at home, you have nothing else to do, or you just feel that you want to help, you can do what I have done, which is now volunteer for the NHS responder team. I have to say that I got an email as it was printed on the news that they are behind on their applications. So don't feel that they are ignoring you. If you have put in your volunteer application like I have, but just be patient with them. That's the wrong word, isn't it? Patient, really. But just take your time with them. They will get back to you. I will apologize in advance. I have got some sniffles. That doesn't mean I've got COVID-19, it doesn't mean that you have to switch off your monitors or run away from your rooms right now just because I've got a sniffle. It is just a cold. So don't worry, I'm not going to sneeze all over the screen. That'd be pretty vulgar anyway, wouldn't it? But if I do have to just bend down, it's probably because I'm wiping my nose. Okay, so rather than just hiding, which some people might be thinking. My 5-year-old son does that too well, hiding from me all the time, annoyingly. So let's talk about Boris Johnson. Obviously, Boris himself has been hit with the COVID-19. He's been tested positive, if you have not seen the news. But I do think that the mantra of stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives, I think no one could say that any better than their phraseology. As much as you can do, if you're not volunteering for the NHS, if you're not doing something vital, then please do stay at home as much as you can. I have seen gatherings, interesting enough, in the park still, or kind of socializing, getting together. I just kind of think it's the wrong thing to do. We do not know enough about this virus. We do not know how contagious this thing really could be, and what distances, etc. We are doing our best guess, but we are not convinced about it. Protect the NHS and save lives. Ultimately, we have got to protect and help the NHS as much as we can. Hence the reason why I have personally volunteered. And I also appreciate that it means that I may have to go into isolation at some point in the future as well, if I come into contact with people that have been tested or of issues like that. But you know, but I do feel that I want to help as much as we can. All right, again. So anyway, without further ado, I should have done the introduction first. I got my slides completely wrong last night and this morning. So my name is Simon Misiewicz from Optimise Accountants, and I help you to grow your business and pay less tax. Right now, clearly, we are not focusing on tax. We are focused on keeping your livelihood. And that's what I want to do, is talk about the financial updates and so on. I want this to be as engaging as possible. So I'm going to take a sniffle break. And the first question I've got for you is, in one word, describe your feelings about coronavirus. So I'm going to just help you along with that. But there are many, many kind of words that you can use. But I'm going to say nervous. And I'm going to say nervous only because I don't know enough about this thing that we're obviously seeing. And equally, I'm not quite sure what I can do to support my family as well as anything else. So I do feel rather nervous about this situation. So tell me in one word how you're feeling about the situation. My screen is, I'm using an Apple Mac, which seems to be slowing down. I don't know, it too has now got this virus thing, but it's really slow in the last week or two. Not sure why. So I'm just going to see what words people say. So from last summer, I'd become self-employed as a seasonal garden. I had not completed my tax return. Bavish said, did you say your Tuesday webinar will be a repeat of today? Bavish, it will be a semi-repeat of today, I have to be honest. It's not going to be a complete repeat, but it will cover off some of the topics that we're going to be covering today. So yes, in a way, it will be a partial repeat. My screen really has frozen. It's diabolical of how my screen is so poor today. So apologies, I'm going to struggle with a bit of technology issue by the looks of things. So I probably could have done this with an iPad. Another question has come through already. Big Smoky, am I entitled to any funding or grants to help while I isolate? There are some grants and fundings and loans, etc. And I will certainly cover that off. Someone else has said problem. So let me just scroll down further. Someone else has said, my wife and two beauty businesses in different names, one where she rents a unit and other at home, both are rateable under £12,000, so she gets full relief. Would she get 2K grants? We'll talk about rates. I'm not totally in terms of au fait with business rates, but my understanding is that the rates have to be a rateable value of 15,000 and 21,000. So I'm just going to do a quick update on that just to see if that is the case, but because I didn't think that you would qualify for these business rates. Yes, it's right. Grant funding of £25,000 for retail, hospitality and leisure businesses with property with a rateable value between £15,000 and £51,000. So it's not about if you said £12,000, then you will not get any of this grant funding at all, unfortunately. Okay, so just reading out some of the other words that people have been saying. I'm just going to do my screen again because it's my screen is really messed up. Okay, so let's just go through. So nervous, social opportunity, says Happy Homes. Paul Rye, broadband have slowed because of extra numbers working from home and streaming. Yes, indeed, people, those naughty people streaming videos like this, how dare they? Oh dear. Oh well, moving on. So let's talk about some of the things. So thank you very much for describing that one word. I think there's some people that are looking at this as an opportunity. Some people are nervous, but that's always interesting. As of last night, the cases in the UK was 9,782. 9,267 was recovered and fatal was 550. Now, it does say recovered 0. Now, I don't think that's the case. I do think there are some recoveries in there. And I think as of this morning, I saw that creeping up as well in terms of deaths, unfortunately. And the number of cases now above 10,000. So I think we've got a serious problem. We are following suit of Italy and Spain, of course. So this problem is going to get worse and not better. So I think we just all got to breathe, keep calm, wash our hands. And interesting enough, I've heard that, I don't know if this is true, this would be interesting. What do you think about this kind of statement that's come out? If you drink lots of water, I'm using orange here because I really can't stand the taste of water, I've got to be honest. But if you have lots of orange or water, better still, warm water, and you cleanse that down your throat every so often, then if you have got anything in your throat, which is COVID-19, and you could wash it down with warm water, which is preferably, then it will go into your stomach and acid will burn it. Now, I'm kind of skeptical about that, but it will be interesting to see what you've heard about that. But if it's an interesting one, I think we should all keep rehydrated anyway. So that's not a bad thing. But it'll be interesting to see what you thought about that. By the way, it does look like more of a rabbit's thing. Sounds it as well. So let's talk about the deaths. Obviously, we can see the spike now, pretty much going at a very, very high rate in terms of velocity. And ultimately, we are again following the suit of Italy and Spain, Italy and Spain. So what is your biggest worry about the financial crisis? So I know you've been already putting your comments on there, but it would help me to understand the audience that is in front of me right now for me to position the presentation. I've got a full packed presentation for you today, but if you could put in what is your main worry over the financial crisis caused by COVID-19, then I can get to work and start to focus that on there. Hey, Say, it's nice to see you. I can see that I do try and joke around. I know that's really bad of me sometimes, but I will keep on going. I understand that the gut digestion does not kill viruses. There you go. So maybe that was not a good thing to say. But saying that, drinking water is a good thing. So maybe that's warm water with lemon best helps one way or another. Bavish, I agree. I think if you keep yourself hydrated, it's never a bad thing at all, to be fair. So one person said, obviously, about the rates. Someone has said about being a gardener. Do I get government grants? Someone else has said being self-employed and having a reduced income. Do keep them in. I'm going to come back to that at some point in the stage. But by the way, if you do find this video useful, then do give it a like, because the YouTube algorithm will pick that up and it will share that with more of an audience if you think it's useful. Please press subscribe, because I will be releasing videos throughout the time. Even next week, I'll be publishing 2 new videos, not just on COVID-19, but on other things. I'm looking at different property strategies as well, and I will talk about the growing of your wealth and reducing your tax liability on those. And again, don't forget to place your comments throughout this presentation so I can help you. Okay, so let's go to the first bit. The first aspect I want to talk about is the no eviction for residential properties. So if you are a tenant or you have tenants, then you do need to bear in mind your rights as a tenant and the rights of your tenants. So by that, I mean is if they cannot afford to pay their rent, then they do have rights to stay in the property for 3 months at least. Now, typically, I thought that it took 2-3 months to even get on the eviction process anyway. So I rather suspect what they're saying is that they've allowed 3 months of not even for you to pursue an eviction. And then after that, you have then got to go through the eviction process, which could take 2-3 months as a minimum. So we could be looking at 5 months as a lockdown. Now, the one thing I would say to you is do reach out to your tenants. The one thing I've heard, which is and utilized myself, funny enough, recently, is look at the ASTs of your tenants and see what business they're in. So if it says self-employed or if they're a doctor or nurse, then you know, well, financially they should be okay, but from a health perspective, are they going to be okay? And that really plays a part if you're doing HMOs. So if you've got doctors and nurses in a house whereby they're sharing a kitchen, bathrooms with other people, then you do need to think about, well, how do we protect other tenants in that property? I don't know the answer, if I'm honest, and it'd be interesting. Have you guys listening to me now got properties which is a HMO and you've got a doctor or a nurse inside? Now say, good man, love you to bits, my friend. What are your thoughts about this in terms of if you're in a HMO, because I know you have property investments as well. Surely you have doctors and nurses or medical professions. What are you doing to protect them as a person in your property and indeed the other tenants? So we do need to think about that. But from a financial perspective, what can we do? If you've got someone that cannot afford to pay you because they've lost their job, or indeed they are no longer able to pay because they're sick, then you could do what I do, and that is call and contact your tenants. How are you? How are you doing? Are there any worries or concerns you have? Now, it's nice when people reach out to someone else anyway. So my view is try and reach out to your tenants, have a look and just be caring, be supportive to them, find out what's going on. They may just say, well, no, everything's absolutely fine for me. I've been laid off or I've got this kind of payment, I'm okay. They might say I'm ill, and then you might have to have a conversation. I had a tenant that lost his job, not because of COVID-19, interesting enough, but because of Laura Ashley, just coincidentally came into the same time. What did I do? I said, we can keep you in that property for another month or 2 while you find a job, and we can accrue your debt over a period of time. And he said, well, actually, I know I've got a year's contract with you. I've only been in the property for 3 months. I was thinking, oh, could I come out? Well, I think the best will in the world is to say yes. And that's what I've done. I've said that they can leave the property early. I can re-advertise that property to someone else that might need it. And away we go again. Now, I appreciate that you can't do viewings. But one thing I would say to you is I have lined up viewings already, but we are also doing virtual tours as well. So there may be ways of you still doing property viewings out of your property and then doing those from a distance. Now, to be honest, that'll probably be overkill, because you could say, well, here are the keys, go and show yourself around the property and you wait outside. And then once they've done, you can then lock up. So it is a way for them to see your properties anyway. So it shouldn't really stop you. You can do virtual tours, or you can do tours of your property that you have for let on Spare Room or whatever sites that you're using, and ultimately have a better prospect of renting the property to a tenant that can pay it. So do speak to your residential tenants at all times. The same applies now for commercial properties as well. So If you cannot afford to pay your rent, then again from March, and both residential and commercial properties, I should have said, is from March, covering all of March, but mostly April, May, and June. So those 3 months, but it was the back end of March as well. There's no eviction for commercial property tenants either. So if you do have a shop or an office and you cannot afford the rent, then you are protected from eviction for a period of time. Now, typically, I would say that most commercial tenants won't look to kick you out straight away, because who else are they going to rent out the shop to anyway? So they have to see it's from a common sense perspective and make sure that you have conversations again, right? So if you've got problems, or you are a landlord of I don't know if you call it landlord, but you know, if you own a commercial property and you have a tenant in there, or you are indeed a tenant, just reach out to each other, use the common sense, pick up the phone. How you doing? What can we do? Can I discuss this particular subject? There are business rates, so grants for that. So again, if you are a shop front and you're in the hospitality business, or pretty much you can go to the local authority and say, can I get this grant of £25,000? I did say it's got to be a rateable value between £15,000 and £51,000. And I know that Bavish has mentioned that he's got the whole a property that's got £12,000 rateable value. And albeit they are not covering that, I would say that each local authority will have its own powers. So there are certainly guidance, but Bavish, I would speak to your landlord if that's the case, and then or local authority should say, and speak to them about those rates and see if you can get discounts on those. Just going through some of the questions. So wow, there's quite a few questions that's coming through, and comments, which is nice. What it says, Happy Room says, whatever you can do to keep your body healthy and decreasing the pressure on your immune system will help deal with any potential health issues. Indeed. And if you've seen my Facebook picture recently, my son has been killing me with Joe. I think it's called PE with Joe. And as a dad, I thought I could mince this one relatively easily, and I was breathing on my backside within 10 minutes. That's probably more than you need to know on this Saturday morning, but hey, do have a look at that. It's a very good thing to look at doing exercise with your kids. Keep active, keep clean, and then yeah, you should be okay. And stay away from other people, of course. Celine said, new business without 3 years history and grants available, and we'll talk about that later on. Dave Driver said, main worry is tenants not paying, which I've kind of covered off. There aren't any grants available for that, but I will cover off in terms of mortgages. In fact, what I will talk about now is mortgages. If you have tenants that aren't paying you, again, do what I have done and speak to your mortgage broker, speak to your mortgage lenders, because you need to find a way to defer payments out. Now, I know that some brokers have been saying, oh no, not a good idea. Well, some of the things I've been having conversations with my bank, NatWest, have been very, very productive, to a point that they have already said that any capital that I've paid on my mortgages in the last 12 months, they will refund back to my bank account to beef up my balance sheet. And equally, they will defer any further payments for another 3 to 6 months. And that's both capital and on interest as well. So to be fair, there are some positives. Now, you do need to speak to your broker, but I would also say speak to the lender directly. The broker may have good, market spread in terms of what they know, but you know more about your properties, and the bank manager knows about your account. So have a conversation directly. I know brokers like to try and help out, but sometimes it's just easier. Brokers are very busy and the banks are very busy. Don't get caught up in a busy queue behind a busy queue. Go to your banks directly and find out what banks can offer you. Because if you can minimize your outgoings for your property as much as possible, then your lack of incoming shouldn't be too much of a concern. You don't have an overspill potentially. You can do the same with insurance companies as well. Find out if If you have got rental property, commercial properties, all of our properties now have got the NLA guaranteed rent. So if anything does come up and the tenants cannot afford to pay their rent, I do have money coming in to my bank account because I have that insurance. So it is a good thing for you to get yourself into. Do read your particulars of your insurance. Now you could have the NLA guaranteed insurance, or you could just have insurance that covers you for your buy-to-let mortgage, which also protects you from loss of income. Do check out your particulars of your insurance documents to see how your insurance companies can help you. Pete's just said self-responsible, unecstatic about government financial support, but they didn't cause this to happen, and I chose to be a limited company. They don't owe me a living. We need to own that. Peter, that's a very good point. I think the danger is that we might rely overly too much on other people. And I think this is a lesson for us all going forwards. We had the financial crisis in 7, 8, and 9, 2007, 2008, 2009. We had the financial crisis slightly after that, not much of a one, but now obviously this is a global issue that we are facing ourselves with. And it goes back to what's there's a good book, by the way. Do get the audio book. You haven't got too much to do. By the way, don't switch off from me when I tell you this book to read or audio book, because it is good, but this is better. Okay, just stick with me. Stick with me. So it's called Good to Great, from Good to Great, from Jim Collins. Now that's not to be mixed up with other Collins, who is a singer, but Jim Collins did write a good book called From Good to Great. Worth getting the audio book. The actual main hard copy book, which I've got both, is hard going. There's a lot of information in there, but the audio is not so bad. It does give you some brilliant snippets of why big businesses stay big, and why businesses that have come onto the market was pretty big in the one decade, but in the next year has gone bust. So it's worth looking at that. But one of the snippets I got from that is have a healthy liquidity bank account. Now, you could have money in stocks and shares, which you can liquidate quite quickly. You might have stocks and ISAs, savings accounts, which you can again liquidate as soon as possible. If all of your money is in property, and I have a big deal about this, if all your money is always in property, you cannot sell your property in times like this or in times of recession. So all of a sudden now you are desperate for money. And you do need to look at your businesses going forwards to say, well, how do I keep that cash of money? Now, a lot of people, even the education sector, will say, well, come to my education sector, ramp up your credit card to attend my education center. Don't worry about it, because in the future, you will get your money back. I feel sorry for those people, because they've done the exact opposite of what the Good to Great book will say to people, is only spend money that you have available to you, but have a war chest behind you to protect you in these eventualities. And not many people have done that in this society in the UK. And they've been practiced to put things on credit cards, even property education courses, which is now going to be really harmful for them as individuals. So do be a bit careful with that. Philip said, I'm concerned that if property values go down, even if you do not default on your mortgages, the mortgage lenders will call in margins. There may be a time, Phil, that you're right about that will mortgage lenders try and pull in mortgages? I think if you have got a great rate, they may well do that if you haven't got coverage or you're a risky client. But I rather suspect if you are paying your bills all the time and the property values go down, but actually you're a silent customer, I don't think that's going to be the case. So again, speak to your banks as much as possible to go through that. Wow, some more questions came in also. More basic worry is that a close friend of mine is a nurse and will be drafted into ITU next week. Yes, absolutely. We all have friends and family that are in the nursing practice, and we all reach out to them. Viva said the NLA have issued the government guidance on isolating in a shared house. Yes, thank you very much for that, Vela. Sorry, I said Viva. Yes, absolutely. And by the way, hello. I do know you. So in regards to that, the NLA have done some brilliant articles and research. In fact, I pulled off a video onto YouTube about what the NLA had to say on that matter about coronavirus, isolation, how to help with your tenants. So do look at the National Landlord Association website for very, very useful information as a landlord, or indeed a tenant for that matter. I spoke to my tenant who simply said, I don't have to pay my rent as the government does for the 3 months. Andrew, I think we have to educate our tenants to say that it's not a holiday of payments for rent. You're absolutely right. This could cause a financial meltdown whereby people just think, well, I'm not paying you rent then because I'm on holiday. They need to be educated. I think the truism of everything is that a bit of knowledge can be quite dangerous, and therefore we need clarity in terms of what it is. So if anything, you could send a text or an email or send a letter through the door to say, these are the things that you are entitled to. These are the things that you might want to do in the eventuality of becoming sick, or indeed if you're being made redundant. Protecting their livelihood in terms of income, so, which we are going to get into shortly. I think that we need to help them so they can help pay our bills ultimately. So it is a two-way process of helping one another. I'm trying to send advice to tenants. So this is saying I am trying to send advice to the tenants. I'm being lenient with tenants at this difficult time, which say you have to be at this point in time, because ultimately, who else are we going to get through the door? People are going to be worried about moving properties. And in fact, I think the government has said you cannot move house. Now, Ross suspect that means it will go even further for tenants as well, moving into rental accommodation. Someone said, Nana said, as a business director, I could pay myself a very low salary. Can I increase my salary as a furloughed worker? The answer to that, Nana, is no. You would have to pay yourself what you've been paid in the last 3 months. So we'll come on to that in a second. But again, please, for anyone who's thinking there's a loophole here, don't fall into that trap of saying, well, I can exploit this for my own gain, personal gain. And I say that with sincerity, because some people will be saying, oh, okay, maybe I can do something to get myself more money into my bank account to protect my family. But the issue is the government have said that they are going to be putting in fraud teams in place and will fine people that are found to be exploiting this scheme or any other scheme that they're putting in. It says if less than 15k you can get 10k. Okay, I've not seen that abstract, so thank you for sharing that. So just to go back on the business rates, someone said if the rateable value is less than 15,000, you can get 10,000. Now that I don't know that, but it's worth contacting your local authority. Abstract, if you can share the link that says that, then that'd be fantastic. Hopefully from a government website as opposed to from any other source. That'd be useful. How do we cover overheads? Business survival, says Gary. Mike said, lost buyer of a buy-to-let just before exchange on COVID-19. I now lose the full 80k lettings relief and 9k PPR, an extra 30 CGT if now sold after 5th of April. Yes, indeed, I can understand that as well. And to be fair, I've lost a deal as well. So we're in the same boat. And there's nothing we can do about it. We are where we are. And I think that's not anyone's fault at all. But we do have to kind of just suck it up, expect the worst. But if we are live and we get through this, then I don't think we should look too much about individual small things. In fact, there's a phraseology that I use in the gym with my gym partner, and it was, don't let small things break a big man down. And I said that because I think we just need to look at this thing and say, well, hold on, we might lose 10, 20,000, 30,000 pounds of money. It's a lot of money. It might be 75, 80% of our wealth. But if we've got our health, that's more important. So absolutely, we need to batten down the hatches. We need to do things we can do to protect ourselves. But ultimately, we do need to keep alive. And that's more interesting. Stephanie said, what's the second book? what's the second? I've not mentioned the second book. It was just From Good to Great by Jim Collins, if you wanted to know that stuff. Bavish said, government made a mistake calling it payment holiday, should have called it payment deferment. I think you're right. I think the payment holiday thing has come across the wrong way. Some good news out of this, and this is where I think the government have done fantastically to support us. There is a telephone number which I'll read out to you. You can see it on the screen, but I will read it out anyway, just in case you're listening rather than watching. And that is 0800 0159 559. That number again is 0800 0159 559. And it covers different types of tax elements. So it covers off VAT, tax, corporation tax, and so on, and CIS, I understand as well. But VAT, if you was about to pay any VAT whatsoever because of your business, trade, or indeed you have property like holiday let, service accommodation, you had to make a payment between the dates of 26th of March and the 30th of June. Please do cancel your direct debit. Now, they have said that this is a payment deferment. Again, you do need to pay it. So Babish, I've just stole your phrase there. I do like the payment deferment straight away. So I'm using that from now on, and I'm not going to give you any credit. In fact, I'll edit this video to remove what I've just said about saying that you brought it up in the first place. But thank you. So payments deferment. So we are talking about a payments deferment for VAT purposes from the 26th of March to the 30th of June. Do cancel your direct debit. If you do not cancel that direct debit, then VAT payments will be taken out of your bank accounts. So make sure you go onto your government website user ID, check out your VAT page and cancel that direct debit. It is not going to be done for you automatically. Income tax. So if you had, if you had a payment on account in the 31st of January and expecting a second payment on account on the 31st of January, which is normal, that is now being deferred as well until the 31st of January 2021. So again, it is helping us to save as much money going out of our bank accounts to HMRC. And you can make other deferments as well. Corporation tax is one. So I have personally deferred my VAT and my corporation tax. Now, I'm not going to say I needed to defer those payments, but right now we do not know the uncertainty of our business, our rental business, and therefore I want to beef up as much cash in our bank accounts as possible. So I have deferred my VAT, I have deferred my corporation tax. For worst case scenario, it's about keeping a good war chest of cash to protect the business, to protect my tenants, and to protect my family from this financial crisis that we have. So make sure you've done that. And maybe if you can, just let me know by dropping a comments box, drop comments in the comments box, if you have indeed deferred your VAT payments, your corporation tax or income tax. If you have, then don't tell me the amounts. I'm not too concerned about that, but do tell me if you have done that to save yourself some cash going out of your bank accounts. So you missed the question from Mike at 1027, section 24. Mike said, just coming on to that, to be fair. Bavish, how outrageous. Straight away saying you haven't done your job here. Now I know you, Bavish, it's okay. But ultimately, I do stop halfway through. It's like I have a conversation with someone and I just stop halfway. And then they just look at me really strange and I just walk off going, I don't know what the conversation was about. So I do happen to do that. So I'm glad you pulled it up on me. So Mike said, will the government defer these Section 24 rules? No. Section 24 is law and therefore will not be delayed any further. So ultimately, that won't be the case. But if you have no rental income coming in, then you don't have any Section 24 issues anyway, is my understanding. So the fact that they're trying to help us with mortgage payments going out, there won't be a tax consequence whatsoever. So it's a nil and void situation with that one. So Stephanie said, above the link with no info on cash grants and retail, hospitality and leisure businesses for 10K, 14K. So, okay. I've not seen that link, I've got to be honest, but hopefully it is above my own link. So hopefully I will reread that. Say, as you said, hi, Simon and others, we're the link for the new rules where we can see the government will cover 80% of employment costs. I have written an article on optimiseaccountants.co.uk and coronavirus. Now that's been updated on a daily basis, sometimes every 5 hours. So do check out that. It's got every section you can imagine that is really relevant to business owners and landlords as well. So do have a look at that. Dave said, kicking the debt down the road though. Yes, it is, but I'd rather have the debt down the road where I can do something about it, as opposed to having the debt on my face and now I'm crippled. So yes, I agree, but let's try and look at the bright side of things. We can then forecast ourselves out of this crisis as opposed to being knocked down by it, quite literally. Okay, so I've got that. So, okay, fair enough. I can see that. Brilliant. Thank you ever so much for doing those sharing of those. So mortgages and loans. So let's talk about these. So there is Bavish will be straight on this because you'll notice that the slide said mortgage payment holidays. Bavish would say, no, deferment. And you're quite right. It is just a deferment. So again, all I've done with these is talk to your banks, whether you've got car loans, you've got credit cards, you've got buy-to-let mortgages, you've got home mortgages. Do reach out to your banks and speak to them. Now, I know that NatWest are doing a fantastic job. RBS doing a fantastic job to help people. Banks that aren't so helpful, and please do take note of this because I think people need to remember these banks. HSBC, absolutely horrible bank. They wrote a letter to me on the week that this all happened to say, my overdraft is being reduced in terms of the amount, and they're going to put up the rates of interest. Now, when we're meant to be pulling it all together, have the banks really done that? I would say that NatWest was the ones to call me to say, here are some of the solutions we can do to help you. HSBC, no personal call, just a letter and go, okay, we'll exploit this situation. I have to say, not impressed at all. What's your personal experience of banks being so far? Have your bank and name them, because I think we need to know which banks we should be banking with in the future, because as soon as this is all over, I will be out of there in terms of HSBC. I've got to be honest, in terms of the way they handled themselves, I am not impressed whatsoever. I think NatWest and RBS, when people are coming together and being so supportive, you feel good inside, you feel that you want to help other people. When you see something like this letter from HSBC, I have to be honest, I ripped it up, shredded it, put it in the bin and said, right, okay, check my bank accounts, let's move to NatWest. That was a first instance response. So if you want to do that, HSBC, go right ahead, you know. But what's your interpretation of how the banks have supported you? I'll read those comments in a second. There is a business interruption loan from the British Business Bank, and that's been obviously pushed out by the government, and they are giving you a delay of capital and interest payments as well. But the conversations I've had with several banks now is the fact that the British Business Bank interest rates, once you come out the other side, are a lot higher than if you went to your normal bank account and said, can I do a payment holiday, sorry, payment deferment, and trying to find out ways of extending overdraft facilities, increasing loan amounts, etc. Because as a business, we use debt to try and grow our businesses. And like I say, NatWest have done a fantastic job. I understand as well that some of my clients have been speaking to RBS, and RBS equally have been brilliant in terms of providing support. So it'd be interesting to see what you have got. And I'm going to just go to have a drink now, so my throat is getting dry. Please note, that doesn't mean I've got COVID-19. You have to run away from your screens. It just means I've got a dry throat because I'm talking so much. So rest assured, I'm all right. Okay, so here we go. By the way, if you haven't got a drink next to you, run off now and get yourself a drink, because if anything, keep yourself hydrated, keep yourself clean. So wash your hands as well when you're at it. And there's me being a bit of a daddy. Anyhow, let's go on there into seeing what your comments have been. So look, wow, this is a lot of information going on about the banks. I'm really happy to see this. Okay, so let's have a look. Hi, Louise. Hey, happy rooms. Louise isn't with me today, so the shackles are off. I can say what I like. So yes, and don't report me. Okay, just don't report to me. So, so it's not sure if it's in the right place to mention, but if you think it is appropriate to share here, I'm about to finish a PDF that people can use to find out vulnerable people. Hold on a minute, I need to rephrase this. So it says, I'm about to finish a PDF that people can use to find out vulnerable people. Now, I hope that's written in the most sincerest ways, because when I read that first time, I thought straight away, all right, I'm going to target them. So happy rooms. If you do have a PDF, please do share that with in a link in the comments box. I know what you meant. It's just funny how I've interpreted that in my warped mind. So have a look at that. And so it says, and volunteers in their neighborhoods to get organized and help others around. That's what I knew you meant, just didn't read that section. Please let me know if it's something to share. Please do, happy ruins, share that link of how we can help one another. Obviously I've done the NHS route, but if this is another one, I know that there was a food thing that I did on my Facebook account, something share or place whereby they help people distribute food to the vulnerable. I've donated money there as well. So if we can all do a little bit to share and donate, then that will be great. Happy rooms, Barclays will be replacing its daily overdraft fees with single interest payment of 35%. Wow, I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but 35% seems high. Okay. So he said, very impressed with Bank of Scotland Group, Halifax BM Solutions. Got their online system set up, fast text message acknowledgement, text message alert when changes have been processed. So I think that's fantastic. If we can get the banks like that to help one another, then that's exactly what I'm looking for all the time. Philip Dench, it says, it's Maria. Hi, Maria. Hope you're well. Talk about fraud. No, I'm joking, Maria. Nice to see you, by the way. Letting agents have gone to ground. I have been taken over management. We have deep cleaned the HMO and issued a protocol for tenants. Tenants seem to be relaxed, but appreciating the support. And to be honest, though, Maria, I think if you do reach out to people and say, how are you? At least they know you care. And I think that goes a long, long way, to be fair, in terms of developing that relationship between you. I think it's great, to be fair. Oh, so someone managed to agree with you, HSBC, lots of pencil pushers. Yeah, out these banks. Yeah, I said that on my LinkedIn profile. Normally, I'm not so outlandish in my comments, but I saw so many people talk about HSBC. I asked them to leave the UK shores, and they'll never will do, just because I, Simon Misiewicz, put that on my LinkedIn profile. But do have them a look at my LinkedIn profile and like it and comment on it, because I think they do need to be shamed in terms of their actions. RBS and NatWest have become the latest banks to announce a steep hike in their interest charge on overdrafts, with some set to pay 39.49%. If that is the case, then I'd be absolutely horrified to see if this is the case, and the government should step in. But NatWest haven't said that to me, to be fair. They're keeping my rates and extending my loan payment terms. So maybe we do need to look at that. Stephanie said, here's a link to Optimise Guide. Okay, I can't see that, but that's fine. So HSBC is a British bank. I used to be a British bank, but I don't think it is anymore. I think it's taken back over by Hong Kong, isn't it? So I don't know. I know it's in the FTSE 100, but I'm sure now that it's gone back over to Hong Kong way. So I know when it was Midland Bank, it was certainly British, but when it was HSBC, I'm sure it went offshore to some main thing. Dave said, I sent off my online forms to Bank of Ireland. Okay. Oh, Fair Share. That is it. Maria, thank you ever so much. So Fair Share is the one I donated money to, and that helps vulnerable people. So if anything, you could donate money there. That would be fantastic. So I thought you might find this video, Dr. Mayhill, interesting. It's a 5-minute video. I'm following the iodine and high dose of vitamin C protocol myself. She explains it very well. I guess back to the point of it really does help us to keep healthy. So whatever we can do. Okay, this is really useful, guys. Thank you ever so much for that. Again, you've been doing a great job, but if you've not liked this video, if you're getting something useful, please do like it. It does help my YouTube algorithm to get this message, to get this useful, guys. And by the way, a lot of the useful insights that have been shared today hasn't at all come from me. It's come from you. So thank you ever so much for that. And that contribution means so much to me. So we can get this message out by liking, commenting like you've been doing, then hopefully other people will get to see this message as well. And please do not forget to press the subscribe button. Let's just move on to some more content. So let's talk about, so we've got two aspects here, haven't we? We've got the employees whereby they may be laid off, and we'll talk about directorships and so on like that as well. And we've got the other side, which is 80% of the profits of the self-employed. Let's get into the detail now. I won't go back to my YouTube panel of questions just yet. I will cover the questions off once I get through this section because I need to focus, as Dwayne Johnson would say, focus. Okay, so the first bit I'm going to go on to is 80% of UK wages paid by HMRC. And this is for employees and furlough. So we'll talk about furlough. Now, yesterday, I did a video with Cheryl Willie of Peak HR. The name tells you what she does. She's in HR. She's our HR representative. She does a fantastic job. And I got her on the Zoom conference call, and we had an interview to talk about this particular situation. And it was just very, very useful to say, well, what can we do? What are the rights of the employees? And one thing I would say, if you are an employer, have decent conversations with your employees and make sure you back up whatever you say in writing. Okay, that's the first thing. If you're an employee, you should be speaking to your employer and understanding your rights of what furlough is. A furlough is the displacement of somebody, almost not for a redundancy side, but displacement for a period of time. So in this regard, we are talking about employees. Now, the employee must have been employed from the 28th of February or beforehand. So this is a huge problem. So Cheryl and I had a huge discussion about this because we're in the same boat, whereby we have got someone starting with us, even though they're remote working, and I love our business, it is remote working. We are still going on in our practice because we've been practicing remote working for so long. And we've been doing this social isolation for 4 weeks already. So we was ahead of the curve before the British got on board with that. I'm not saying I should be the Prime Minister of this country. No, really, I am not saying that. I'll be horrendous. But my point is that we did isolation, and we have got this particular problem though, because we have got an employee that's meant to be starting on the 1st of April. And what we were planning to do is that they was meant to be coming on board into our office for training and to understand the way we do things, because it is slightly different to other organizations in terms of accountancy and tax preparation and so on. And we can't do that anymore because we're doing social distancing. And that person is meant to be starting in April, but if they get ill and they've left their job now, they won't be covered by furlough because they were not employed by the 28th of Feb. They have left that employment. Now they've gone to another employment with us at Optimise, and they won't be covered by furlough. So we're trying to do all we can to say, well, keep yourself safe because we need you fit and healthy because you need to get paid. So if you are an employee or a director and you want to get this furlough, you need to have been employed on or before the 28th of February 2020. And we can't forget as well, the grant funding itself is money that's going to be coming from the government into the bank accounts of the employer, and then the employer will pay the employee. In reality, what's going to happen is that the employer will need to pay the employee who's furloughed 80% of their wages, or £2,500, whichever is the lowest amount. I will restate that. So it's 80% of the wages or 2,500, whichever is the lowest. Now, I did a poor accent of a South African there, whatever. And I really wasn't intending to do that. I was trying to be serious. And in my mind, it just went off somewhere else. So let's imagine if someone's on £100,000, well, do the maths, but you will know that they're on circa £8,300 or whatever per month. Well, they will only get that maximum of £2,500. So we do need to bear that in mind, that is 80% of their wages or 2,500, whichever is the less. Now, what will happen is that there is a client portal that will be opening at the end of April. Now, if you kind of recall, this is going backdated from the 1st of March, and it will be lasting until the 30th of June. Ultimately, it's going to be going that way. Now, the thing for me about this situation is if the portal from HMRC is not opening, there is no links. If you look for a link now to register for this furlough as an employer or an employee to at least understand, okay, is there an application process live? The answer is no. That's not going to be coming on board until the end of April 2020. So we've got this distance now, and I'm talking about end of April, not the beginning. So we've got a whole month at least to wait for this to be enacted. And even when that's taking place, these guys are going to be so busy in HMRC that we won't have the staff. I don't think we're going to see payments really coming out of HMRC into our business bank accounts until May. So if you've got employees, well, you've got employees now that have been with you. Let's count this. You've got March, you would have paid. Now, furlough and COVID wasn't really around. I know we're just into March, but you might have paid them mid of March. If you pay them the end of March and they're already on leave, then you've got this decision. Well, do I go through furlough and pay them this 80%? Well, if they're off work, not generating an income for your business, they can be furloughed and stay at home. But now you've got to support them by paying 80% of their wages out of your business bank account. You've got to do that for the end of March, end of April, and then end of May. And at that point in time, you may then get 3 lots of those monies that you've paid to your employee back. Maybe that's too late. So do bear that in mind, because if you are a business owner and you're thinking that HMRC can pay them directly, that's not going to be the case. What will happen is that you as an employer will have to put in your list of employees that have been furloughed, and you would have to prove that you've made payments to them, and then they will pay you back. Now, again, it's £2,500 as a maximum, but you do get the employer's NIC contributions back, so national insurance contributions, and their pensions up to a maximum of 3%. So you'll get this 2,500, you'll get their pension contributions at 3%. If you do more, that's out of your pocket, not theirs. So you're going to have to do some maths and homework with your accountant, which, to be fair, accountants are going to have to get their heads around it. So please be patient with them. So it's quite complicated, and there is genuinely a delay in terms of getting this money. So let's repeat this process. So in summary, I should say, furlough can only apply to employees and directors of a company if they have been employed from the 28th of February. And it will take back, in terms of the wages and so on, it will look at the wages that they've been paid in the previous 3 months. It will not take into account any bonuses or commissions. This is purely the basic salary of that person. You as an employer will have to continue to pay the employee 80% of their wages if they cannot work and staying at home, or the maximum of 2,500. You will have to apply for this grant through the HMRC website at the end of April, and then you will get paid in May, possibly June. So that is the summary of furlough. Now, I'm just going to go into this. The other side that we need to bear in mind, in fact, I'm just going to stay off that page. I'm going to stay onto this. Because there are questions out there to say, well, what if I'm a one-man band, as in I'm a director of my company and I'm generating the income. Okay, so you are an employee, don't forget, as a director. So that's one. You are, or you're in business to generate a profit. And now the profit is gone because of COVID-19 coronavirus lockdown. That tells me straight away that you will be able to apply for this grant. Now, the thing I would say about this is if you are a director and you have many, many employees and you're not in the front facing of organization that generates the income, I think you're going to be hard to justify the fact that you then go on holiday, because you may have to do things like marketing. Well, marketing doesn't change. You're not generating income, but your job could you could be at home carrying on your work. Now, the phrase I've heard already on Facebook is, how will they know? Well, that's fair. But let's not forget, if you're in a role that is public facing, then HMRC won't take too long to find out that you're doing things in a working capacity for you to then be fraudulent. So you do need to be careful with this. If you're a one-man band limited company and all of a sudden your income drops off the cliff, then my view is, well, you could then get this income, this grant from HMRC. There is a catch with this, because I have clients that have a limited company that pay themselves a wage each month, but all of their income is from property. Now, can they furlough themselves and get this money? No, because the rental income will be generated. They are not doing something directly. The income from the properties is being generated without really their involvement on a day-to-day basis. So you couldn't justify that as a salary to be furloughed. Ultimately, you will be there for tenants. You will pick up that phone to a tenant if they need your help. You are technically working for that income to be generated. If, however, you are a limited company with tenants in properties that you own inside that company, and all of a sudden the rental income all dries up and you have no rental income at all, then I would suggest that furlough could apply because you have no income. So this is all about, has the income as a one-man band or even a few people in your organization to be furloughed, has your income dropped off a cliff? And if so, then the grant funding for furlough will apply. If your company, though, has income coming in and you expect yourself to be furloughed, I don't think that's something you could justify. That's just the way I look at the way that HMRC have interpreted it on their website. This is not my opinion. These are the words that they're using on their website. And indeed, they talked about fraud and COVID-19 as well. And there are snippets in that kind of relay the information I'm passing on to you. So furlough, let's just continue. So these are the discussions I had yesterday with Shara Willie. Discuss everything with your employee or your employer. Must issue employees with documents. So this is whether you're an employee or you have employees, make sure there is documentation to support what is going on. If you are being furloughed, make sure you understand the employment law behind that. You know, you might be furloughed. For how long are you going to be furloughed for? If your employer then says, well, I need you to do some work. No. They are furloughing you so that they can receive money from the government. Do not allow your employers to give you homework if you are being furloughed, because they are not paying you ultimately. And equally, if you're the employer, don't give your employees work, because you could be in a real hot, sticky situation whereby you've broken employment law. So do get some guidance on that. And it does say cannot work whilst being paid by HMRC. So again, going back to my point, if you're thinking that, well, I can make benefits from this, please stop, because HMRC will be targeting people and they'll be reviewing what's being requested and looking at the income from the company as well. So again, press like, subscribe, but comment with your thoughts and questions and how you've interpreted what I have said. Is that the same or is it different to what you've already heard? and let's have that discussion. So I'm going to go straight to, so Happy Homes, thank you ever so much for sharing this article. I can see that it's from MoneyWise, so thank you ever so much for sharing that. Okay, so Stephanie's saying YouTube is deleting my post with links. What you can do, Stephanie, if YouTube is doing that, then it might be worth you just saying what the company is and maybe the page it's relevant to. Just try that instead. So let's just go to a couple of points. Ashfaq, it said all banks have provided mortgage holiday forms on their website. Ashfaq also said simple and easy, fill and get acknowledgement. Ashfaq, be proactive is the message. Get those forms filled out as quickly as possible, and let's see how they are. Interesting enough, one of the banks I'm with, which is the Nottingham Building Society, were not offering this. So I would check that out now, because they did say that they were not going to do anything because of COVID, which was another bank that I was straight after this is all finished, I have to say. Okay, so let's have a look. So yeah, Happy Homes, I can see that message coming through. So that has worked. So however you've done that, I can see that you've removed the www and the HTTPS. So maybe that could work. So let's go through. Celine said, unless it's a YouTube link, it can be shared if it's YouTube link. So do feel free to do that. So let's just go through. So Phil stroke Maria said, RE furlough, does the previous employer pay if the person has left in March to start a new job? Well, unfortunately, if someone's left, then they won't be furloughed because their employment contract has now finished. So if someone has finished, is left in March to start a new job in March, then they will not get furlough entitlement because they did not start on the 28th of February from their new employer. And this is the example I was given before, is you could find yourself, as an employee in a real horrible position, because all of a sudden you've been saying, well, we're a shop or retail, we can't have you in here, we're going to furlough you. And what employers will be looking to do is say to you, well, we're going to delay your contract start date until things are ready. Because if you are employed within 2 years, then you have less rights than someone who's been employed for more than 2 years. So that's a consideration, because if you cannot physically stop, so let's imagine you've got a contract, you've signed it as an employer, they've signed it as an employee, and you're a shopfront. Now, as a shopfront, that employee cannot get into that premises to work. So really, they have not enacted that contract, and therefore that contract could come nil and void. So even though it's been signed, if you have not acted in good faith of that contract, then that contract could be nil and void. So do bear that in mind. Someone's just said, Debbie. Okay, hi, Debbie. Good to see you. What about volunteering when on furlough? So if you're volunteering and you're on furlough, then you're not doing work for the employer that you have contract of employment with. However, that is a good point. If you are employed and you put yourself in harm's way as a volunteer, and then you become ill, well, the employer could have a lot to say about that, because for the employer to put you on furlough, it is saying self-isolation, keep yourself safe. If you put yourself in harm's way from a volunteering perspective, and then you become ill and cannot go back to work, well, then you are back to statutory sick pay. And the employer could say, well, what did you do to protect yourself? Is this now an issue for you to continue with your job? That's something I have not thought about. Fortuitously, I'm looking to do volunteering, and Louise, my wife, is my boss. Yeah, I'm screwed. Anyway, let's move on from that. So volunteering is okay. Volunteering is okay, but again, you do need to look at your terms and conditions of your employment to say, if you're doing some work, do you need to tell them what it is, even if it's not paid? So yes, so that's some good things. Someone's also said, can you look at my questions on 1041? Unfortunately, I can't see your timings of these things anymore. So unfortunately, I can't look at your questions. So if you want to type it in again, I will have a look at that 1041. Okay, let's move on then. So now self-employed. This is something that came out in the news, obviously. What happens to the self-employed people? Self-employed. Now, here's the thing. Some of the details on the government website was quite very interesting from who they're going to help. So self-employed people, listen to this very, very carefully. This is from the government website. It says your self-employment. Now, do note straight away on your tax return, it will say self-employment income. If you have property income, employment income, ignore that. Okay, just ignore that. It's just looking at that line, self-employment income. It's not looking at anything else. If you are a property investor, then you'll be filling in pages for the property income, not the self-employed. So you cannot get this grant if you're a full-time property investor. You can only get this if your line on your tax return says self-employment and then a number next to it. Going on from that, the profits must be less than £50,000 per annum. If your profits in any of the last 3 years are exceeding £50,000, I do not think you are one. The government have said you will not get this grant. So if you've got profits in excess of £50,000, you will not get this grant in the way it's intended. Okay, that's interesting because as an employer, you could be £100,000 earner, but you still get this 2,500, but not if you're self-employed. Wow, that's almost bordering on discrimination, right? So I was really interested enough that your profits must be lower than £50,000 for you to get it. Additionally, on your tax return, you have property income, employment income, savings income, self-employment income. Now that self-employment income must be 50% or more of the total income on your tax return. If it's not, you will not get this grant. Okay, so we've got a double whammy here. If you've got profits over £50,000 or your self-employment income is not more than 50% of your whole taxable income, you will not get this grant. Plain and simple. You must be in business in the year, this should say must be in business in the year 2019-20. Sorry, that's my typo error. I was doing this last night. So must be in business in year 2019/20, but trade lost must be caused. So I'll restate because when I read that just now, it didn't make any sense at all. It wouldn't make sense to you. So let me try and get myself out of this hole I have just created. So you must be in business in the year 2019-20, but your business is now ceased because of COVID-19. So someone who said earlier that they're a landscape gardener, the question is, well, the government have said, is it critical? Well, gardening really isn't critical, is it? I mean, we might have long grass and whatever else problems for the future. And to be fair, that's not critical. So from that side of things, you could justify that your income has dropped as a result of COVID-19. Now, if your profit is below £50,000 and your total income is self-employment income is more than 50% of your total income, then the person who said that they're a landscape gardener could claim this as a self-employed person. Now, the last point on this, which is a lot of detail, and that's why I want to take my time to go over it, and I will head off to the Q&A section straight after. 80% of the average last 3 years will be paid. So if you've got profits of 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, that means that they will pay you a prorated base of £8,000 because it's 80% of the profit of the average. Now, if you've got a situation whereby your self-employment income is 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, you've still got to take an average of that, which is £20,000. So if you've got a growing business, you're almost going to have to average, which is a lower rate than what you've done last year. So if your lifestyle is now based on the increased amount of profits as a self-employed person, well, you are now only going to get 80% of the average, which means you're going to get a lot less money. Now, this could be quite advantageous for those people who have got a declining self-employment business. Let's imagine that you've got year one, going back, this is the first year of this averaging is £30,000, the second year is £20,000, the third year is £10,000. Well, your lifestyle probably is going down because your income is going down. Maybe you're in retirement or something like that, or you've had a bad run of things. But with this, you will still get 80% of the £20,000 because it's looking at the average of the 3 years. But it is only 80% of those 3 years. And that money, again, will be applied. Now, here's the crux. Can I get it? Am I eligible? What communication will be sent out? Well, here is again from HMRC on the government's website. HMRC will automatically notify you. So they know on your tax return whether you have 50% of income on your self-employment. They already know this. So they will do the mathematics behind the scenes and then send you a letter to say this is the case. They'll also look at, they say, well, hold on a minute, you've been self-employed. We already know the averaging of your 3 years. It is not something you can say to them, well, I know I've got a forecast for £50,000. Can I apply that? The answer is no, because they already know the self-employment income line on your tax return, and they know if it's 50% more of your total income, and they know retrospectively of your 3 years. They can do the mathematics themselves. So as a result of that, they, HMRC, will notify you whether or not you can apply for this grant funding. If, and this is on HMRC and government websites, if you call them, it will delay the process for everyone else. So people are going to be worried, scared, frightened, because they're not sure what the government's response will be for their particular situation. And my answer to that is, don't call them, because you won't get through. They will have someone on the end of the line saying, I don't know. And therefore you will have to wait for confirmation. So you'll just be hitting your head against the wall. You'll be waiting maybe 45 to an hour and a half on the phone, desperate to find an answer from HMRC, and they will not be able to give you one. So if you are a self-employed person with profits of less than £50,000 and majority of your income is from self-employment income on your tax return, then that profit will be identified to HMRC, and they will notify you by letter that you can apply for this grant. You will have to apply within the portal. So even though they send you a letter, you have now still got to do a manual application. So even though they know all this information, they will still give you an application. And why is that? Well, simply put, they know your financial information. They know if 80%, they know if your profit is less than £50,000 as a self-employed person. They also know the averaging of your 3 years profits to give you 80% of the average. What they don't know is, has COVID-19 stopped you from working as a self-employed person? And that is why there is an application process. You have to tell them that my business has stopped. I'm not earning any income whatsoever because of COVID-19. And that is when you can then apply for this grant. Now, please do note that they make monthly claims from the 1st of March to the 30th of June. So again, it is looking at that period of time between those 4 months. They do say 3 months all the way through the website, but it's technically 4 because you've got, unless I can't count, March, April, May, June. I did have to check my own sanity there, but it is definitely 4 months. So with that regard, you can make these claims. But again, the portal is not live. I'm just looking at this thing. I'll ignore the payment on sudden accounts. The portal is not live. We know that the portal for employers will become live at the end of April. Now, this self-employed was pretty much a delay of 2-3 weeks. I also suspect the portal will be end of April, if not the end of May. And again, in terms of trying to get payments from, getting 80% of your profits on a monthly basis into your bank account, well, you may be looking at June until you get paid. it is going to be a lengthy process. And I have to say that you could go to your accountant to get this done, but if I'm honest, do this yourself, because you want to make sure it's done right. You want to make sure you've got all the details before to make this application. So albeit an accountant you kind of turn to for a lot of things, this kind of information, I would say, do it yourself. Keep on top. Make sure you know where you are in the process, because accountants will have delays because of work they've got on, plus a deluge of additional work when they've already laid off their staff. So we have to be sympathetic from accountants. Now, we're not so bad because we have got remote workers. We can continue, but there are going to be a lot of accountancy firms out there that do not have a full quota of staff. They can get sick, like you and I. I say you and I as though I'm not an accountant. That's really strange for me to say that, but you know what I mean. It is about trying to help yourself to get through this. We could rely on a lot of people, but I would say rely on yourself as much as possible. And the last point I'll make on the self-employed is you do not have to pay the second payment account. So again, if you were self-employed and you had £50,000 worth of profits and you got taxed on that, then typically you would have to make this second payment account on the 31st of July 2020. But you do not have to do that as a result of these changes that we're talking about. So that's a good thing, if anything, that you will save that tax liability. I understand, by the way, I'm just a messenger. Please don't shoot me. I don't have, I'm a bit of a wimp as well. So if you shoot me because of this, I might cry. And on YouTube, that's not very nice. So I'm just providing you with information that I have seen from the government websites. I've not gone on to other people's websites that have made interpretations. I've tried to keep this very logical based and factual so that you can make your own interpretations on how it might affect you. I will take questions as we get through. We'll come on to that slide. So let's go head now to the question base and type in your comments in terms of the self-employment. Are you listening right now? Are you able to make this claim on the self-employment basis? And if so, say yes. If you were thinking that you can apply for this self-employment, but now I've said you can't, tell me why. And let's clarify that point just to make sure that there's not been a miscommunication somewhere whereby you could legitimately make this claim. But don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, listening into me today, anything that I'm saying today, as a self-employed person, you will be notified by HMRC. So the big thing I would say is get onto your government portal today and make sure that your address on your HMRC page is your correct home address. Because if you are sending, if HMRC are going to send letters to your accountant or to your old address, guess what? You may not know about it because the accountancy firms in question may be shut, working remotely. If it's sent to your old address, then the person in that address might just throw it away. So please, please, please do make sure that your home address is correct on the HMRC's website. Go update it as soon as possible. At least check that it is correct. Okay, so let's just go into that. So Bobby said, I bought my Resi, hold on a minute. There's quite a good point on the health issue. Thank you, Debbie. Now, is there a few more? Oh no, there's no. Stephanie's got the links on, so brilliant. Remove the space between. There we go, Steph. So well done. So that's good to see. Thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. Bavish said, I bought my house in February 2019 and was due to sell my previous residential house in April 2020. So could I claim extra stamp duty paid under my 18-month rule? That's a good point. So basically what happens is if you sell your main residence, and I'm thinking, are you talking about the 3% SDLT surcharge here? Because that's where you can make a claim. So if you have a home and you haven't sold your previous home, you ordinarily pay the 3% SDLT surcharge. But if you sell your previous home within 36 months, then you can indeed claim that 3% SDLT that you've paid back from HMRC. The question is, if I have done, if my house cannot sell now, which I'm not sure if that's what you talk about, but I will talk about that. If it cannot be sold, then do you have a problem? And the answer will be yes, because you could fall outside now at that 36 months and not get the SDLT back. So that's could be a problem. Yes, 3%. So Babbage, it could present a problem, not provide, should present you with a problem if you fall out of that period on which you can make that claim back on that 3% SDLT surcharge. Okay, Celine said, what if you earn your self-employed income through a limited company? Okay, so Celine, it's this is talk about your personal tax return. So your personal tax return is self-employment income. Your limited company is a separate entity from you, so it is not the same. Now, the debate we had earlier is whether you have a limited company. It's not self-employment. It might be in terms of mortgages, but from a tax perspective, you are a director and an employee of that limited company. You are not self-employed. So from that perspective, could the 80% of your gross wages up to the maximum of 2,500 apply to you if your income from your limited company all of a sudden stops altogether? Selena, that may be a question for you to answer yourself. Happy Holmes has said, does the tax deferment in July apply for everyone or only if you earn less than £50,000? So the tax deferment applies to everyone. There is no delays on that tax deferment. I spoke to them about my own income tax liability. Yes, I can defer that payment on account. There's no issue on that. I've also deferred VAT, no issue on that. And I've also come into an agreement about corporation tax deferment as well. So there is no issue with tax deferment whatsoever. Everyone can have that, and it's automatic. You do not need to apply for a grant on that. So he says, I can't because I was employed until August 2019, so stopped being an employee. Then worked as a management consultant through a limited company. So I was a sole trader earning sole director, now not working. Unfortunately, it doesn't apply. The limited company, again, is a separate entity from you. And I think you're Celine Chachai, so hello. Unfortunately, I wished I could personally give you better help and support, because if you're the Celine I'm thinking you are, then you've been a great help and support to everyone else. I wished I could give you a bit better news, but unfortunately, it's not going to be good news for you. Gary's asked a question. So if self-employed can't be earning any money at all, isn't that the odds with advice that self-employed can keep working? I think the debate is the government wants people to stop working. So if they decide now, because they feel that isolation is best for them and their families, therefore COVID-19 has stopped them from working because they made a choice, then they are not earning. So they can pull on this government grant. If self-employed, for instance, you may be a YouTuber, right? So you can earn money from advertising, or you could be selling courses online. Well, your money is going to be coming in irrespective whether you're at home. In fact, you probably work from home. So that wouldn't stop you from earning money because you're generating income. So therefore, you should not apply for this government grant. It's only for those people that have stopped working or have taken the decision to stop working altogether because of COVID-19. Hopefully, I've kind of done that. So yeah, so thank you for your answer, Simon. You're very welcome, Happy Homes. Okay, so now the question I have got, and we are wrapping up very, very shortly. So apologies that this has gone on a lot longer than I thought it would do. I'm okay with time. I'm just sorry that if you had things to do, you probably won't see this now. So what is the most important learning from this session? What one thing have you learned from this session? Because I think that would be really helpful for me to know that these presentations, because I'm going to do another one on Tuesday. So if I need to make improvements, I will. If there's missing information, I will obviously pick that up, especially at the government grants. I did pick that up, so I will go and check that out. But what one thing have you found useful from this session? Please do type that in, because it does help me to know I'm not wasting my time. And equally, that's you're sitting there frustrated because you've not learned anything at all. So really, if it would help me if you could do that. And I don't think I've got any other slides other than to say that I will go back to the slide. If you've got any more questions, I will hang fire and I will tackle your questions. I do want your comments about what one useful thing have you picked up from today's session. Whilst I'm waiting for you to type that in, don't forget to look at the property tax workshop that I ran last Saturday. We are going to do more property tax workshops. I'm actually going to call it wealth and tax going forwards, because I am looking to do more workshops, which is there to generate more income from the investments that you already have. I think people focus on me being a tax expert, but I have to say that I do have properties and I always look for improvements in terms of making more money from my properties. And I want to share that information with you, if I'm honest. So let's have a look at some of the things that you have said. So Mike Smith said, what about CGT to be paid within 30 days post 5th of April? Can that be deferred until next self-assessment? There's nothing come out of that at all. Now, interesting enough though, Mike, there has been suggestions that not suggestions, it has been put now in legislation that they have deferred the IR35 attack on employers. So if you're a contractor, they was going to make it the responsibility of the employer from the 6th of April 2020. That is now going to be deferred until 1 year. So the comments you've made, Mike, about CGT payments, will they allow you to push that back till the 31st? I think that's a very good call, because it is a tax. And if they're deferring the self-assessment payments and accounts, shouldn't they do that as well with CGT? That is a great question. And I'm going to get onto the sites and ask that very question. Brilliant one. Thank you. I've got one here from Viva saying, HMRC will contact me regarding a grant. Yes. So if you're self-employed, don't forget, they will contact you. You don't need to contact them to see if you're eligible for the self-employment income support grant. That's a wordage, wasn't it? But they will contact you. Okay, so Maria said, translating government support info to real life. Thank you. That's why I did it. And to be fair, I think the government could have more time. They probably would do these sessions, but they probably don't, and bless them. They're doing as much as they can, aren't they? And it's really, for me, I can read this all day. And to be fair, I have been reading it all day. Bavish said, don't call HMRC. Yep, that's absolutely right. Nana said, thank you for the info on furloughed workers. You're very, very welcome. Stephanie said, I feel like I'm in a community and not alone, helping each other. Do you know what, Stephanie? I was thinking with Louise about running more and more of these YouTube live sessions. For you all listening in, do you think having a YouTube Saturday morning session with me, Simon Misiewicz, would be useful for you? Because if you're thinking it would be, then maybe I will start to do these sessions. I've not really thought about it, but I love the word community in terms of what Steph has said. And if I can provide this kind of support to a more global feel on a Saturday morning, then why shouldn't I? It's only going to take an hour and a half, right? So if it's useful, please, please, please do get onto that. Stephanie said as well, can we share your life? Oh, sorry, could take my arm. I mean, this one's been rubbish for a long time. I've got real cold shoulder going on. And it's not, if there is any doctors around, help me out with that. That'd be really greatly appreciated. To say, I've got cold shoulder. If you ever had steroid jabs for that, just send it in post. By the way, just joking. Don't do that. That's on YouTube. I don't want to be banned, okay? So just as Stephanie says, can we share your life, live with people and not yet clients of Optimise? So, well, I want to make sure that people can get as much information as possible. Clearly, my accountants and tax advisors do a fantastic job with clients, but I really want to do this as much as possible. Zoom would be better. Selena, yep, get that. I'm really not into Zoom in terms of these things. I need to get the message out, and YouTube is a great platform for me to do it. So, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do Zoom, but I will do a YouTube. Happy Root said, I think to know that HMRC will call HMRC and get in touch would be reassuring for many. Also, keep you good luck. happy homes, if you're self-employed, please don't call them. Honestly, please don't. If you're an employee, maybe, but I would speak to your employment lawyer or indeed your HR department. But if you're self-employed, please don't call them. They won't know. They will not give you the answer you're looking for. Honestly, I can tell you that for sure. Someone says Saturdays would be useful. Maria said, yes, please. Again, okay, well, consider it done. Saturday mornings, we will do YouTube Live. I'll get useful information out. That's topical and useful. Stephanie said, I think so. I wonder if you are FB Live, maybe there will be more people who can be helped. Okay, well, I could do a Facebook and a YouTube Live. Never done it, but I'm sure we could do 2 cameras and 2 microphones. Worrying, but we can try and do that. And cut out gluten to reduce inflammation on your shoulder. Thank you, Paul, for that. And ibuprofen are also good. Saturday, good. So, okay, Paul, thank you ever so much for joining me today. It's really been useful for me to see what you guys have been going through. And don't forget to comment. So again, if you've got further comments, then do make sure that you get on top of that. I can see people disappearing. So I will leave you now. Thank you ever so much. And I shall see you on Tuesday. But don't forget, maybe now I will start to do Saturday mornings and I will do a Facebook and a YouTube Live. Scary, but let's go and try it, right? What could happen? See you later. Have a great weekend. See you all again soon. Bye-bye.